Welcome back, y'all, to State of the Stallions. This is your host, Luke Miller, and super excited to be here for another week. I hope you enjoyed our episode last week. Got to interview Stallions wide receiver Marlon Williams, and was awesome getting to chat with him and kind of hear where his mind is at entering this third season with the Stallions and bouncing back from his injury last year, season-ending injury that happened in week one. So it was great talking to him. I hope you enjoyed getting to hear from him, and certainly look forward to seeing what he does on the field in 2024. Also, hope you enjoyed the breakdown of the Stallions coaching staff and were just as impressed as I was with the men that we have leading this group of players on the field this year. And hope you're excited for a new episode. We got another player interview lined up this week. Going to have another segment of the Roundup as we do each week and let you know what's been going on with the Stallions this past week and what to expect up ahead. Should be a good one. Thank you again for tuning in. Hope you enjoy.
Here we go. Giddy up on three. 1, 2, 3. Giddy up.
You can feel the buzz when you're around this city. People have fallen in love with the Birmingham Stallions. Here we go. We're getting a little juice going. USFL championship.
Welcome back to State of the Stallions. Really excited today to have another player on as a guest. We kind of mixed it up. Last week we had Marlon Williams, who was entering his third year with the Stallions, an offensive player. And this week we got a little bit different perspective. We've got linebacker Chris Orr, who's entering his first season with the Stallions. Not his first season in spring football, but his first season with the Birmingham franchise. And really excited to talk to him today. Chris, how you doing, man?
Man, I'm doing great, man. I'm doing great. I'm ready to talk some ball.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, I just got to say thank you so much for doing this. You know, we're doing this in the middle of training camp, and I know it's intense, and they've got you guys packed out in terms of your schedule. So just want to say, you know, we really appreciate you taking the time, and I know Stallions fans appreciate you taking the time. Really excited to hear from you. I wanted to start by asking you, you know, I don't know, you know, how many people in Birmingham maybe are familiar with your story, but you yourself and your family are no strangers to football.
Yeah.
So, you know, I don't want to make this about the other people in your family stories, but we're going to touch on it just briefly. Your dad is a Super Bowl champion. One of your brothers is currently the defensive coordinator for the Ravens. You have other brothers that played professional football, and then obviously you yourself are a professional football player. So just give me like a short window into what it was like growing up in the Orr household.
Man, it was competitive, man. One, having my dad, I think that the best thing that my dad did was, you know, just his character, how selfless he is, how humble he is. He's a two-time Super Bowl champ, played in the NFL 9 years. Like that's an amazing career. Most people dream of having that type of career. And I had no idea about his football background. You know, we always saw the jerseys, you know, hung up around the house, and I knew he played, but I never knew the type of player that he was. And you know, the older I got, the more I started to understand how hard it is to play 9 years in the National Football League, and on top of that, how lucky you have to be to get 2 Super Bowls and even the opportunity to play in 2 Super Bowls, let alone win them. So he had an amazing career in itself. I remember me and my brothers finding some of his old VCR tape when he played running back at the University of Texas, man, and us going up to him like, man, Dad, like you was nice for real. Like why did you never tell us you were this good of a player? So one just with him, and then my brothers, you know, we all had our own fire and our own flame for the game, and it just continued to fester and grow throughout all of us. You know, the best advice my dad gave us was that the best football players are the smartest, and we really took that to heart and challenged each other every day. You know, working out together, studying film, whatever it is. You know, we did it all. So having those guys with me, nothing but the best, and to just see them, you know, starting with my oldest brother Terrence. You know, he played at Texas State for a little while, and then my second oldest brother Zach, who you mentioned, who's the DC now for the Baltimore Ravens. He was an all-state linebacker, played at University of North Texas, and played 3 years with the Baltimore Ravens. Was all-pro linebacker. You know, unfortunately, his career had to stop. I'll just clear this up for people. I know a lot of times out there, people think that he injured his neck, but he actually didn't. He broke his shoulder the year that he was all pro. He broke his shoulder like week 16, like last week of the season. I want to say they didn't go to the playoffs. So he got a CAT scan, and that's when they found out that he was born with this super rare condition
Mm.
where the vertebrae in his neck didn't like form all the way. So it became a situation where it's like, hey man, it's just too dangerous for you to keep playing ball, and no NFL team is gonna clear that. Nobody wants that, on
Yeah.
their roster. Nobody wants that risk. They don't want to be involved with that risk. So he had to retire, got into coaching, and yeah, now he's the DC. And my other brother Nick, he played at TCU and played a little bit with the Bears. He actually played in the AAF when that was going on as well.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we play ball, man, and we live, breathe, sleep, and eat football, man. And it's been like that since for as long as I can remember.
Yeah, that's awesome. And like you said, I figured the word competition might come up with
Mhm.
that kind of background, and again having a father like you do. And one thing I've got to ask, so people who are familiar with you might know that you played for Wisconsin in college, and so I'm
Mhm.
kind of curious. You've got all these different Texas connections, right? So you grew up in Texas, you played at DeSoto, which if anybody kind of follows high school football, they know that's sort of a not only a Texas powerhouse but a national powerhouse
Oh
program.
yeah.
And you've got a brother that played at UNT, a brother that played at TCU. Like you said, your dad played in Texas as well. So, and then you went up in Wisconsin of all places, right? So, like, personally, like I can understand it because I grew up in West Virginia and went to college in Minnesota. So, like,
Mm.
people kind of scratch their heads when they hear that. But I wasn't going there to play football. But for you, you
Right.
you kind of went all the way up there to sort of the land of beer and cheese, and decided to continue football there. So what was it like kind of going through that process and making that decision to kind of go to a different place and kind of, make your own way, your own journey in a place that was, a little bit different from where you were coming from?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, there's a couple things. So I remember, growing up, I was telling all my brothers and my mom and dad, like, I'm not gonna go to school in Texas, but I was never thinking that I was gonna go to the Midwest. I'm thinking that I'm still gonna be somewhere in the South, just not in the state of Texas. But throughout the recruiting process, the Texas teams just didn't come calling, man. My only Texas offer was University of North Texas, and they were my first offer, and I just couldn't go there, man. I couldn't go right after my brother. We had already been compared so much. I didn't want to deal with hearing that every day and have to talk about that every day. And he had just had like a legendary career there, so I didn't want to be compared to him every day. Which you grow up getting that anyway. And then the other part of that is, man, like growing up with the family that I have, and a lot of people try to discredit what me and my brothers would do, on the field, or some of the things that we would get, and they try to say like, "Oh man, you got this because your dad, or you got this because your brother." Mainly me because I'm the youngest, and so when the University of Wisconsin came calling, man, they were one of the only Power Five teams that called me and told me like, "Hey man, we think you're a baller. We don't care that you're not 6'1.5", and we don't care that you're right at 6 foot. We think you can play, man. We think you're a Big Ten backer." And that was the other part of it, like. I had so many teams, so many schools, tell me that I was just a tad too short, and if I was 2 inches taller, then they could do it. And I've never believed that's what made a football player. I know it's important for some positions, in some situations, but not necessarily off the ball, man. I think some of the best backers that played off the ball backer are on the quote shorter size or quote undersized scale, and so for a team in the Big Ten to not even bat an eye at that and say that we want you to come play, it was a no brainer for me. So went up there, took my visit, committed. I knew that if I knew that, thinking about the NFL, like if I can come to the Big Ten and get off blocks and make plays, then there will be no excuses for anybody to say like, oh, you're just a little too small. We don't know if you can get off blocks. We don't know if you can do X, Y, and Z. And that's what made the decision easy for me.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I want to pick up on kind of something you said there. I was going to ask this later, but I'm going to fast forward and kind of ask it now, and then we can
Mhm.
we can work backwards a little bit. But you talked about Wisconsin kind of wanting you, and being one of the few schools that sort of at that level, that sort of Power Five, Big Ten, SEC level, that saw what you could bring to the team and said, hey, we want you to come here and be a part of what we're doing. I'm curious, again, like I said, I'm kind of skipping ahead a few stages here, but this past offseason with the USFL and with the XFL and the merger and all that kind of thing, obviously, unfortunately, one of the teams that sort of got folded through that process was the New Jersey Generals, who you'd been a part of for 2 years. And so when that all sort of unfolded, obviously, I'm sure you didn't exactly know what was going to happen, but there was obviously the different drafts and all that kind of stuff. And it worked out that the Birmingham Stallions in the USFL, the first initial dispersal draft of USFL players, you were the player that they wanted the most, that they took in the first round of that draft. And obviously, the Stallions have been a very successful team over the past 2 years, 2 championships. We all know about that. And obviously, they've had some very good defensive players and some very good linebackers. DeMarquis Gates obviously was there in the first year. Last year he wasn't there, but he's back. And then obviously everybody knows Scooby Wright. And then we've got other guys that are still around like Elijah Sullivan and, Damon Lloyd came on at the end of last season. So I'm curious, I guess kind of 2-part question. One, did you, have any conversations with the Stallions or other teams kind of, and when you found out that you were sort of, becoming a free agent, whether you liked it or not, after the kind of the merger sort of broke, and then, what's it sort of been like to be brought into the Birmingham sort of franchise and kind of be, again, sort of singled out as a guy that when they looked across the USFL teams that were sort of being folded up and said, hey, that's a guy that we really want. And as good as we've been, we think he could really make us better.
Yeah, I mean, that was a crazy process. I remember, in the beginning of it, it was like, yeah, we're definitely having another USFL season. I know the thought was that I thought the merger was going to happen after this upcoming season. I thought that this would be another USFL season, and then after that season, they would merge. But then it happened sooner or later, and we got the news that we were folding. Zach Potter, he was one of the first GMs to reach out to me and let me kind of. They were kind of feeding me the information, him as well as Memphis and Michigan, just let me know that, hey, this is going to be a draft. It's not necessarily just open market free agency. I know it would have been that if I hadn't signed back with New Jersey right when our season ended, then I would have been a free agent. I would have been able to, pick where I go or whatever. But that wasn't the case. It was a draft. So yeah, Zach was showing me the most love, man, and he was like, "Yo, we're gonna take you, man. We really want you. We think you're a heck of a ball player. We think you've been one of the best backers in our league the past couple of years, and we love to have you." So I was just kind of chilling, waiting to see what happened, and once Zach let me know it was confirmed that I was going to be a Stallion, I was ready to go play ball, man. It honestly didn't matter what team got me, but I'm happy to be here and happy to be a part of this franchise for sure.
Yeah. We can definitely talk more about kind of the Stein side of things, and we will in a second. But I want to back up and just talk a little bit about your time in New Jersey. So, that first year, obviously, you all were super successful. A lot of people going into the postseason, kind of thought you all were the team to maybe beat. And then, the second year, obviously, you all were in a lot of games, but a couple close ones down the stretch just weren't able to pull it out. And so, you were still kind of right there, maybe going to make the playoffs, but it didn't quite pan out, the way obviously you hoped. But just kind of curious, what your experience was like, that first year kind of living in Birmingham with all the other teams. And then your second year, you guys got moved to Canton and we're sort of sharing that with the Maulers. And then now you've got a completely new experience where you're kind of back with 7 other teams in Texas, but you're going to be flying out and getting to play, at your home stadium. So I was curious if you could just kind of talk a little about sort of, having a couple years of experience across these different spring leagues, kind of what the different stages or what the different seasons has sort of been like for you.
Well, so that first year, nobody really knew what to expect. I think that everybody that was involved in that first year in the USFL would say that. So getting down to Birmingham was different. I'm from the South. I'm from Dallas, Texas. So I mean, it wasn't new for me. I already knew about the South and the just different ways, just in a different state. It was a little different that we all lived in the same hotel for a while. So you see everybody. You can see everybody. You see a guy limping. This dude's ankles bothering him. He might not play this week. So that was different. But I would probably say, the other part of that too is that, my year with the Carolina Panthers was a COVID year. So I was kind of already getting a little accustomed to, not having any fans in the stands and stuff. And I think the USFL did a really good job of, they kind of let us know, like, hey, like, we know that this isn't going to be the best for everybody. It's not the best scenario, but our goal is to make it to year 2. And we did, which was amazing. So my hat's off to them for being able to pull that through. I remember, playing in Birmingham, and the only time that we had fans show up was when the Stallions played. So we played in week 1, and that was an electric feeling, man. I that was my first time being in a stadium with fans, or full of fans. Let me say that. Since my senior year in college, so that was fun to play in that environment. And then last year, switching up to the hub cities, I think the USFL did a great job with that too. Yeah, everybody wasn't in their home markets, but for the most part, everybody except I guess us in Canton, everybody had at least one team that was in their home market, so it made it better. And I think we were in good spots where people just love football and they were going to come out to support. So I think it was structured well. And then this year it's kind of almost like a blend. Like, yeah, we're all down in Texas, but we're not all in the same hotel anymore. So it's kind of like a hub a little bit. Like I know like two teams share practice facilities and stuff like that, and two teams are kind of in the same like area, but we're all in our own spaces. So it's kind of like a blend of the first 2 years this year.
Yeah, because I know you all are sharing some space with the Renegades. So, like, have you all kind of crossed paths with them much, or is it pretty much you all are just kind of you use the same facilities but at separate times, and there's not really much overlap?
We usually eat around the same time, I guess. So we cross paths there, but outside of that, yeah, we're pretty much separate. We got our own meeting rooms, and they practice at a certain time. We at a certain time, so we cross over a little bit, but not a crazy amount.
Gotcha, gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense. And so I wanted to ask a little bit, kind of now that you're a part of the Stallions, and given the merger, given sort of the new league and the UFL, I was wondering if you could just give us a little insight into sort of what the first week of training camp has been like, especially in that linebacker room. I was actually talking to Zach Potter a couple of weeks ago, and kind of unprovoked, when he was talking about the linebackers, he mentioned, people asked me like, what's the best position group on our team? And he didn't officially say what it was, but he brought that up when he was talking about the linebackers. So that you all came to mind clearly. So, I mean, obviously we've got, three All-USFL, former All-USFL guys, and yourself, Kiava Tizino, DeMarcus Gates. And then, on top of that, we added guys like Traven Howard, who's a Super Bowl champion. Damon Lloyd joined the team at the end of last year. He'd been in the NFL. Obviously, Elijah Sullivan, who was a great linebacker for us, is back. Scooby Wright obviously is back. So, I mean, we could just kind of keep going down the list. But, what's sort of that first week of camp been like, maybe compared to other years? How's it just sort of been, kind of first meetings, first practices, being a part of the Stallions?
It's been fun, man. It's been fun. It's been different just because I guess I'm with a different team, but I would say the main thing that stands out is that, man, we got a lot of talent on this roster. I think across all positions we got a lot of talent, and that's real evident. In our practices, you just see guys flash all the time. So I'm excited as we get more and more into the nitty gritty and the meat and potatoes of training camp to see how guys pan out as football players. But so far the talent is undeniable. It's undeniable. Everybody's a different player, and everybody's learning from each other. Everybody's giving each other little tips and stuff on how they can improve their game. So it's been a lot of fun. And then two, I don't think that people understand how connected the football world is. Like, for a majority of people, like I already knew so many people on this team, prior to joining. Me and Tez, we were teammates for a little while in training. He was with us in Carolina in training camp for a little while, and I've been knowing Traven since I was like 16, 17. He was my brother's teammate at TCU. D Gates, we got a connection through TJ Edwards and Jack Sanborn, who were my teammates at the University of Wisconsin. His teammates with the Bears, and I was teammates with Matt Caskey in Carolina. So it's the football world is so connected, and it's easy to see guys that and guys that you've been with, and see how they've developed and grown. And it's just been a great overall experience so far. And I just can't wait to see when live bullets actually get to going, everybody to see these guys' talent level, because we have a talented team.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, there's even some other guys I was thinking about that you didn't mention. Like, I know you and I had talked before about, like, Chris Lacey. He went to the same high school as
Yeah.
you, so like you all were there at the same. I mean, you've known each other for a long time,
Oh
and
yeah,
then
we grew up together.
yeah, yeah, which is, I mean, it's crazy to come full circle like that,
Hmm.
and like be back in. I mean, obviously you're not playing for a Texas team. You're playing for
Right.
Birmingham, but right now you're living in Texas, living in
Right.
DFW.
Hmm.
So that's crazy. And then we've got other generals on the team too, like Hercules. We got,
Hmm.
on the defensive side, we got Calvin Ashley on the offensive side. So, even just from the last couple of years of spring football, there's obviously a lot of overlap. But then you start throwing in like high school, college,
Yep.
NFL. And like you said, it's a smaller world. I think, I didn't realize that as much as a fan, but then the more I started kind of
Hmm.
following this stuff and talking to players, you kind of realize like, people know each other and all that kind of thing. So,
Oh yeah. Oh
um,
yeah.
what would you say? I mean, obviously you've been super successful the last 2 years. From an individual standpoint, winning all USFL awards and last year, if you hadn't missed a game, you might have been the lead leader in tackles. And so,
Mhm.
obviously it was a great season. And then, that first year from a team perspective, obviously you all had a really fantastic year. Didn't finish the way you would maybe like, but do you have any sort of, heading into this new league? I mean, I think there's going to be even more eyeballs on this league, even more attention that this league's getting. I think we already can kind of see that leading up to this first game between the Stallions and the Renegades, and ESPN and Fox and kind of everybody who's behind it. But do you have sort of for yourself and as a team, just sort of any kind of aspirations or goals or things that you hope to sort of prove, in this kind of new team, new system, new league, all that you're kind of stepping into this year?
Yeah, I mean, I had the same goals that I always have anytime that I'm playing ball. I individually I want to be the best, and as a team, anything that I can do to help my team be champions. That's been my goal ever since I've started playing football. I understand that that's football immortality. You become a champion, you're forever engraved and ever sketched into football history. So I'm just trying to be a part of that, man, and I've always tried to do that from junior high, high school, college, NFL, USFL, UFL, it doesn't matter. And, from an individual standpoint, I'm just here to show that, nothing's changed, man. I'm still the same player. I'm still that same great player. I'm still gonna be out there making plays and flashing all over your screen. So those are my goals, man. That's it. And I'll let God take me wherever He wants, man. And I'm just excited to get out there and split some wigs and shorten some necks.
There you go. Yeah, absolutely. Well, we're excited. I know, the Stallions obviously have been successful, but even when I talked to Zach a couple of weeks ago, one of the things that he mentioned was they felt like as good as they were last year, they did feel like the defense was an area where they could really improve, and obviously offense too, special teams too. Like you're always improving, right? If you want to be
Hmm.
stay on, once you get to the top, it's hard to stay up there. So you got to always be looking to improve. But he did tell me that defense was one area in particular where they really kind of sat down and put their heads together this offseason and kind of talked about what can we do differently and how can we maybe be even better than we have been. And obviously bringing in a guy like yourself and some of the other players that they've brought in are sort of a big part of that. So I know we're really excited to kind of see what that looks like once the season rolls around here. So maybe if you could just kind of give us just as much as you can say, but I mean, obviously we got about a week of camp under our belt, and before you know it, that first game is going to be here in like 3-4 weeks. So between now and then, have they kind of given you an insight of sort of what to expect as far as what you all will sort of be doing between now and then to get prepared for that first game?
No, I mean the basically just the typical stuff that you do.
Yeah.
We're going through training camp right now. I know we have a scrimmage coming up. And then after that, it'll probably start getting closer to actually game planning and stuff. But
Right.
just camp right now, figuring out your team, trying to get your team to gel and mesh, which I think we've already done a pretty good job of, especially with the fact that, we already have so many connections, man. The list honestly can go on and on, at least for
Yeah.
myself personally. Like, you mentioned Chris. I even played with Kenny Robinson. Like we played
Hmm.
together in Carolina. Like yeah, that list can keep going. Terrell Bonds was with my brother in Baltimore. Even little stuff like that is just how the football world is so interconnected. So I think we've done a good job of gelling and meshing so far. But yeah, just getting everything right, man. Installing as much as we can and sharpening each other. Getting ready for that first game. I kind of already know what to expect because it's almost kind of like the same as how the USFL was. Just football in general. You go through training camp, you get to roster cut downs, and then you get down to week one, and we get to play ball, and you're on this roller coaster ride of a season, and you're just trying to stay on and finish first. So that's the plan, that's the goals, and I think that's the path that we're taking for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And how are you feeling about? I don't want to jump too far ahead here, but um, how are you feeling about that sort of week three game, your first game in Birmingham, be a first home game for the Stallions? And I know for you, it's going to be, the first, true sort of home crowd that you
Mm-hmm.
had in quite a while. Like you mentioned, you were in Birmingham for those season openers the past 2 years, but everybody was, cheering for the other team. So,
Yeah.
so how's it kind of, what do you look forward to with maybe, that game sort of in the pipeline?
Yeah, I just look forward to that fan experience, man. That embrace from the fans. I especially from a defensive perspective. Especially playing at Wisconsin and having the pressure that you can see the offense feel that pressure from our fans. So I definitely looking forward to that. I've been on the other side of that Stallion fandom, man, and you can definitely feel it in there. And that's what I'm excited for. I know that we're the only pro team in the state of Alabama, so I'm expecting everybody to show out and show up, especially with the merger. I bet that there's some fan competition as well. Everybody hypes up some other people's fandom or whatever. So I'm excited to see our fans come to life and show some love, man. I think that's you hit the nail right on the head, man. This is my first time playing truly in front of my home fan crowd in 4 years, honestly, in 4 years. So I'm excited to get that experience because I know that the Stallion fans are rough and rowdy, and they've been out there, in all those years that I've played in Birmingham on the other sideline. So now I'm excited to feel that embrace.
Yeah, absolutely. I know that I'm looking forward to it. I know all the fans are looking forward to it. We kind of lucked out with the schedule. We got, I think 3 night games, which would be really exciting. Last year we got that first night game when we played you all, but then after that it was kind of like a lot of games in the afternoon, and it was 105 degrees out or whatever. So so I'm really glad the schedule worked out this year where we got a lot of night games. And like you said, I mean, I know you know we'll save this conversation for another time. But there's all the competition, obviously, in football. But with this merger, there's competition, right, between this sort of USFL and XFL side. I've seen people from both sides, talk about how one's better than the other and all that kind of thing. And obviously that affects players and coaches and teams. But I mean, that's true for fan bases too, like you hinted at, right? Like I know
Yeah.
I'm kind of sick of hearing about how many fans St. Louis has or whatnot. And they've got a lot of fans. Like I got to give it to them. But I think for us, we've got something to prove too as a fan base. And so I'm really hopeful and excited to see people kind of show out for the team. But obviously, given the fact that like you mentioned, it's the only pro team in Alabama. Back-to-back champs, and then new league, new sort of merger, new competition. So I think it's going to be a lot of fun, and I know people are really looking forward to that first home game date. I think we feel a little slighted that the initial home game went to Arlington instead of us. So we're we gotta show out and make the league realize that make them regret not having that first game in Birmingham. So
yeah, for sure, that's the plan.
Well, one more question for you, Chris, before I let you go, related to Birmingham, actually. So I've asked a couple other guys this. I'm going to ask you this. If I'm kind of putting you on the spot, so if you don't remember, it's totally fine. But you lived in Birmingham that first season. You obviously weren't a Stallion, but you were living in the city. And Birmingham, one of the things it's known for is having great food. And so I was curious, if you think back to that 2022 season, was there any spots or any restaurants that you kind of fell in love with or you hit up regularly that maybe you're looking forward to getting the chance to go back and try when you come into town over the course of this 2024 season?
Man, there was a restaurant there was a couple of restaurants right next to I don't remember their name, but right next to the hotel we were staying in at that Sheraton. No, that was definitely some good food. I'm definitely gonna have to hit those spots up again. And then I also gotta admit something, man. Being back in Birmingham, that was my first time being back in the South in a while. And man, I missed Whataburger, man. I used to hit Whataburger so bad, man. I'm a Texas boy. I gotta go get my Whataburger. So after every game, I went and got me some Whataburger for sure. But no, there was a couple of spots. I know there was a chicken and waffle spot that I used to hit a lot, and I'm feel bad I don't remember the name, but yeah, no, it's definitely some good food out there. And Jeans, that was it.
Yeah.
They had some good cake too. Yeah, and there's definitely some food spots out there that I'm excited to hit again before we get back on the plane and head back here.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned Whataburger because I think the first one opened in Birmingham like just a couple years before that season. So if the USFL had started any sooner, like you might have not been able to get get Whataburger, but now they're kind of taking over. There's like 3 or 4 in the city. You know, it's
Yeah.
expanding like crazy. But you're in Texas now, so you know there's no
Mm-hmm.
shortage of Whataburgers
Oh yeah.
these days. I was actually talking to a guy, Stallions fan, who's coming out to the first game in Arlington, and he was telling me he can't wait to come out here because he can get In-N-Out out here, and you can't get that in Alabama. So
In-N-Out. Whataburger way better than In-N-Out, man.
I don't
Whataburger. This is what I gotta say. This is what I gotta say. Everybody that chooses In-N-Out over Whataburger, usually they get their burger and their fries animal style.
Yeah.
Now, me personally, I believe that if everything is in your sauce, then your food is really not that good. That's why I say Texas barbecue is better than like Nashville, Kansas City, because they pride themselves on the sauces. Well, we pride ourselves. It's all about the process of how you cook your ribs or whatever it is that you make in your brisket, and it's not in our sauce. You eat this without the sauce. So that's my knock on Canes too, man. You can't eat Canes without the
Yeah.
sauce. So I just feel like if you gotta doctor it up some special way, then it's really not that good.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that. And since you brought that up, I'll ask you because I've actually had some people talk about this that are coming out from Alabama to Texas for that
Mm-hmm.
first game. I think feels like we're going to have actually a pretty good contingent, so I'm excited to see what that's like. I'll be
Yeah.
there, and I know a lot of other people that'll be there too behind the Stallions bench. But if people make the trip out from Alabama to DFW, what's the barbecue spot that they have to hit up?
Ooh, honestly, I'll say this: the best barbecue spots usually are like the hole in wall spots.
Yeah,
But if you want, just somewhere that I can actually give you a name and you can go to, I say Hutchins Barbecue. There's one in Frisco, and then there's another. There's two locations in DFW area. Hutchins Barbecue, man, best barbecue you can get. Make sure you get the Texas Twinkie, man. It's a jalapeno popper, wrapped in bacon, and it's got brisket. It's got some smoked brisket in there too. So yeah, hit up Hutchins Barbecue for sure.
yeah. Do you by chance know who the guy is? Keith Lee.
Oh yeah.
I think he
He
went to
went.
Hutchins. Yeah. He went to
Yeah,
Hutchins
he
like a couple
went.
of weeks ago, and he
Yeah,
was
man, he
raving
went and
about
made
it.
the lines long. He went and
Yeah,
made the
that's right.
lines long.
Yeah. If you try to go to Hutchins, you might have to get there early because after his review, I'm sure it's blowing up. But
Oh yeah,
the review when I watched it, I was like, yeah, I'm definitely going to have to hit that up because I mean, he like picked up a rib and the meat was about to fall off. Like
yeah,
it looked
yeah,
amazing.
yeah, yeah, for sure. It's been died down a little bit now. I'm not gonna lie, it's been died down. So you should be okay. But I know that when he first came, yeah, man, he had everybody. You had to get out there early if you
Yeah.
wanted to get some. After he did his review, but it's died down a little bit now. So Stallion fans should be all right.
Good deal. Good deal. Well, Chris, thank you so much for doing this, man. Can't thank you enough. Again, I know you're busy with camp and everything going on, so it means a ton that you took the time to do this. And certainly on behalf of all Stallions fans, we're really excited to see you week 1 in Arlington. Those of us are going to make the trip out. Can't wait to cheer you on. And then obviously all of us will really be looking forward to seeing you in week 3 at that first home game at Protective.
Same here, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, man.
All right, folks. I hope you enjoyed that interview with Stallions linebacker Chris Orr. Again, I've said this, but I'll say it again. Make sure you show him some love. Follow him on social media. Thank him for taking the time to do this. He did this in the middle of training camp while he and everybody else are fighting for a spot on the roster, as we'll talk about in a little bit. So make sure you show him some love and just thank him for taking the time to do this. I hope you enjoyed a little bit of insight into his background and what he brings to the Stallions in his first year with the team. But now it is time for the roundup. So we're going to go over all the latest news as it relates to the Stallions from the past week and look into the week ahead. First off, let me say there's not a ton of new news this week. Players have kind of settled into training camp, getting into that rhythm, and teams have mostly just been practicing, having meetings, kind of gearing up for what's going to be about a month-long training camp. But we do have a couple really important and exciting things I want to go over. One being the fact that we expect new uniforms to be released sometime this week. Mike Mitchell with Sports Illustrated mentioned that at some point this week, the league was going to come out and reveal new uniforms specifically for the formerly USFL teams, the Stallions, the Showboats, and the Panthers. And as of Tuesday night, the Showboats had tweeted a little bit of a teaser that their uniforms were coming. So by the time you're listening to this, they may already be out, but at some point this week, we do expect to maybe get a glimpse of what the Stallions uniforms for 2024 will look like. They will be Under Armour uniforms, so really hoping for, maybe a little bit of a step up and upgrade from what we had in previous years. I'm not expecting a complete overhaul. There wasn't a lot of time between when the merger was announced and everything kind of coming together, I think, for them to do some kind of massive, rebranding of the team or something like that. So I'm expecting something maybe a little bit similar to last season, the last 2 seasons, but maybe some updating, maybe some modern touches. Have been noticing a lot more kind of bright red in the Stallions merchandise that we've been seeing online and that sort of thing. So we might have more of a reddish tint as opposed to kind of maroon or cardinal that they've used in the past. So we'll see what exactly it looks like, but expect those to be out very soon. Another exciting piece of news that actually I broke earlier this week is that the Stallions will be scrimmaging the Battlehawks on Saturday. As of now, I'm not sure if that is going to be open to media or press at all or anything like that, or if it's going to be entirely closed. Certainly don't expect that it'll be televised or, publicized in that sort of way, or that it'll be open to the public. But hopefully we'll be able to maybe get some media coverage on the ground there and get a sense of how that goes and what happens and what players kind of shine for the Stallions. But when we talk a week from now on the next episode of State of the Stallions, expect us to talk a little bit about how that scrimmage went and maybe some insights from the team. Another piece of news related to that is that after the scrimmage on Saturday, on Sunday, the Stallions are going to have their first cuts of camp. Every team is going to have their first cuts. So by the end of the day on Sunday, every team, which currently sits at 75 players, will have to be down to 58 by the end of the day on Sunday, which was the number of players that the Stallions carried into camp in 2023. Cutting down 17 players from this roster is going to be extremely difficult. I do not envy being Skip Holtz or any of the other coaches, Zach Potter, or anybody involved with these decisions, because if you just look at the Stallions roster, it is absolutely loaded from head to toe at every single position. And the thought of having to let 17 guys go who are very qualified to be playing professional football at this level is just, it's a tough pill to swallow. And so, certainly we'll be thinking about those guys that don't end up making the cut. We'll have a lot to talk about on next week's episode because the cuts will have happened and we'll have the chance to kind of go over the 58-man roster that we're going to be carrying through the rest of camp until the final cut down when we get down to 50 players for the season. So that's going to be some big news, certainly going to be some heavy news, not exactly exciting news because, again, it's going to be hard to see us let go of some of these really fantastic ball players we've brought in, but that's part of it in this business, and that's something that will happen this weekend. And so, again, make sure you tune in next week, and we'll talk about it. Well, that's all for this week's episode of State of the Stallions. Again, hope you enjoyed the interview with Chris Orr. Hope the roundup was helpful and you have a good sense of what's going on with the Stallions. Again, a little bit of a slower news week, but definitely make sure you tune in next week because we're going to have a lot to talk about with new uniforms, with the scrimmage happening, with cut downs and sort of a 58-man roster to kind of talk about and look at. And certainly got some other surprises in store. So make sure you don't miss episode 4 next week. Thank you again for tuning in and giddy up.